of looking at it. And I couldn't agree more. It's like just an instinctual feeling of the fact that as we're digging into the past, in many cases, it's like we're looking into the future. Just an intuitive feeling I have in one way, and to hear this in terms of Stefan Mahl that you mentioned then about the Acadians is indeed very, very interesting. And it's almost like they know then that they're going into oblivion, and one way of preserving maybe some of this knowledge can be done through architectural means as well, I guess then, right? Buildings, structures.
Oh, yeah, beautiful thought, Henrik. There is just there seems to be almost a frenzy 5 or 6 thousand years ago to build these massive structures. They're hanging on to something, and there's a lot of different theories about why this was done. Just an aside, when I was a kid, I heard about Stonehenge, and they told me, oh, this was a structure built just when mankind was going from hunter-gatherer to agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't know when to plant his plants, and so he needed to build a calendar so that he wouldn't forget and could harvest them at the right time also. And I bought into that when I was a little kid, and now I realize how absurd that is to, if we have the technology and the time to go quarry, 50-ton stones and drag them and build them in a perfectly astronomically aligned structure, we're definitely not starving.
Yeah, exactly. But we can't remember when to plant a seed or not. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I do agree with you. I think these ancient megalithic architectures have a purpose, and I've got a couple of theories, but I don't think anybody really knows right now exactly why they were built.
I mean, again, it would imply that again they possibly could do things in the past that we can't do today, like again the building of some of the pyramids out there, and again the stellar knowledge that we only now are being able to verify. Allegedly, for instance, did mankind forget that the planet was round? When this seemed to have been known in the past, and all of a sudden it was flat. You know what I mean? This is very weird. Why this is happening?
Exactly. Yeah, all this knowledge that we had disappears and then comes back. For example, put this in your mind. Use this 500 AD as your low point. We know that Aristarchus of Samos, in about 500 BC, wrote about the heliocentric system. Because we find mentions of that, and even Archimedes taught this system for a period of time. And then the heliocentric system being, that the Earth goes around the sun. And then this knowledge is completely lost into the Dark Ages. And when does it come back? It comes back in 1483 with Copernicus, 1,000 years after the Dark Ages. And so it was lost 1,000 years before the Dark Ages, found 1,000 years after the depths of the Dark Ages. And, I think it just shows this great evidence of, what is lost will slowly come back, but sort of everything in its time and season.
Absolutely. And how do you reckon that for instance, the Ice Age play into all of this as well? Things like, you talked about, for instance, light before, and maybe we can even connect that with heat or actual, radiation from the sun, our angle obviously as well. And we seem to, Ice Ages seem to come and go as well on the planet. Does that have a relationship with all of this, do you think?
Yes, there does seem to be regular ice ages that come and go. That's pretty well verified through the ice core records. And Milutin Milankovitch, he was a Russian scientist. He wrote quite a bit about this and showed that it tied very closely to this precession of the equinox. And so, this warming and cooling on a global basis does occur in sync with this celestial motion. But I don't know that exactly how much it has to do or doesn't have to do with the higher ages, because actually it appears that the higher ages correspond to a time when we have more ice on the Earth rather than less ice on the Earth.
All right. And do you also think that maybe some of the features from the past and building structures, pyramids, or even inscriptions and things like that that are around, that we progressively might understand them better as we kind of regain this consciousness of old as we go into the future, so to speak?
Yes, I do. There is some work being done by a scientist friend of mine, John Burke, who happened to just pass away, unfortunately. But it's absolutely brilliant, and what he did was he took well, he did many things. He's been to over 81 ancient sites where he took electrostatic voltmeters to virtually all the pyramid sites in Central America, the ancient Mayan and pre-Mayan sites. And he also took a magnetometer to some of the henges. And so let me tell you about his work at Avebury. Avebury, as you may know, is the largest stone circle in diameter in England, in the world really. And it's one that there's 66 stones that still remain, and they're big, massive stones and very hard to move. And so he just sort of intuitively thought that, whoever put these here must have done it for a reason, because it took a lot of work to do that. And so he wanted to see what the polarity of the stones was. And remember, we were just talking about how the geologist can tell where the Earth's poles are based on the polarity of a stone.
Mm-hmm.
When a stone is formed by the Earth, the side that faces the North Pole will be the positive side, and the side that faces away from the Earth towards the South Pole will be the negative side.
And
all stones have a little magnetism.
Exactly. Is that the magnetite in the stone that aligns itself depending on where the North Pole is? Is that how it works?
I actually don't know what it is within the stone, but obviously all stones have some magnetism to them. And of course lodestones, it's very obvious where north and south is, because you can tell which side attracts and which side repels.
Yeah.
But most stones, the magnetic the amount of magnetism is so light, it's not much more than the Earth itself. The Earth is one big giant magnet, but only about 0.6 Gauss or so. And but anyway, what he found, he took his magnetometer to the 66 stones at Avebury and found that each of the stones was aligned so that its positive face faced the next stone in line, meaning the negative face also faced the next stone in line in a reverse pattern. So let's say let's use our clock diagram. The stone in the 1 o'clock position, its positive side faces the stone in the 2 o'clock position. The stone in the 2 o'clock position faces the positive side of the stone in the 3 o'clock position, etc. So all the positive sides face one direction, all the negative sides face a different direction. And it's an absolutely astounding finding, because it means, one, the builders of this structure 5,000 or 6,000 years ago somehow understood the polarity of the stones, even though we've only been able to do it the last 100 years when we developed magnetometers. And two, what did they do it for?
Yes.
It's the same formation that you find at the Hadron Collider in Switzerland. Of course, we use that as a particle accelerator. That's what the magnets are for, to accelerate particles.
Right.
And I'm not saying that Avebury is a particle accelerator. I'm saying there's probably some other purpose, because it's weak magnets. But it's knowledge that we once had and we've lost, and we haven't even rediscovered yet.